Styrofoam eggs. Well, can you decoupage directly onto them? I suppose you could do that after you have at least primed it with some chalk paint, but Styrofoam eggs typically are not that smooth. There's usually a seam that shows, and they have this kind of honeycomb appearance to them. If you look closely at it, sometimes there are little pieces of the Styrofoam missing. So for me, I want a smooth surface. I don't know why it's so hard to find smooth, solid eggs that are plastic, that do not open. You can find wooden ones, but they're more expensive. You can find paper mache ones, but honestly, those aren't totally smooth either. So what I am choosing to do with these little cheap Styrofoam eggs that I have is to coat them with drywall mud, aka joint compound. My husband is the owner of a drywall company. He's always called it mud, so that's why I call it drywall mud. Drywall mud is extremely easy to work with and to sand. To me, that's why I chose to use it over some other type of plaster products. Now, do you have to prime it first like I did? Will drywall mud bond to Styrofoam? I'm not sure. I have read some articles that it will, but I didn't know that it would, and I know that for a lot of non-porous surfaces in the drywall industry, like concrete block, you have to prime that stuff first before the mud will stick to it. So a simple coat of chalk paint did the trick. Now I'm just using a spatula here. I'm not particularly worried about getting it really smooth. Not going to be a way to do that anyway because of the shape of it. So I'm just getting it on there fairly thickly, and then I'll be able to sand it down. Now in my region of the country, in Alabama, where it's very humid, I let these things dry overnight. It would have taken at least several hours. There is a drywall mud that is called Quick Set that you can mix up, and it comes in different forms that dry at different rates. Like, for example, there's a 30-minute and there's a 45-minute. I didn't have any of that. My husband probably did, but I just grabbed the little bucket that I have down in my craft supply and just applied regular straight joint compound. Let that dry, sand it, smooth it with a wet foam brush, and then apply another coat of primer paint, which is just plain old folk art chalk paint. Then I'll be ready to go. You saw me coat the egg with sheepskin, which is a chalk paint. And then I added a little bit of country twill, which is acrylic, and just kind of modeled, swirled it around. But I kind of want to create a little bit of a marble type finish on this. I am missing a very important tool, which is my turkey feather. Don't know where that is. So I'm gonna have to punt. You're really not supposed to use a paintbrush for creating veins for marble. The feather works, turkey feather works really well, but I can't find it. So my first step though is to create a little bit of scumbling on this egg. I'm going to use some paint. This is an acrylic teddy bear tan. And what I want to do here is mix equal parts of paint, water, and glaze. And I am using Amy Howard's glazed over. It's a good glaze. The purpose of the glaze does two things. It gives you more open time to work with it, but it is also going to make it more of a transparent, translucent color, which is the important part in this. We don't really need more open time on such a small little egg, but if you were doing a large project, that additional open time would help you. So equal parts paint, equal part glaze, and equal part water. You'd think adding water is kind of counterintuitive to glaze, because water, when you add water to paints, it makes it dry faster. But this also thins the paint, which is why we're adding it. That might be just a tiny bit too golden for this. So I'm going to add a little bit of this country twill. Oop, if I can get it to come out. I am going to be putting brown over it though, so not super worried about it. Okay. Do need a sea sponge. Now, if you take a look at your sea sponge, you'll see a more prickly side, and then you'll see a flatter side. For this, the flatter side is what we're going to use, but this thing is so big, I'm just going to tear a tiny piece of my sponge. You never want to work with it dry. You have to wet it. Okay. Offload a little bit. Now when you're applying this, I'm holding this tail because I don't want it to whip out and do it. Now when you're applying this, I want to leave open areas. And I'm also kind of going directional from the bottom left corner up. Okay. Now with a lint-free cloth, gonna make me a little pad. Flat pad, no wrinkles. We're gonna work from the edges of that and soften, moving it into the open space. Seems like it's drying really fast. It's probably because of that drywall mud, even though I've got paint on it. Yeah, I probably should have coated it with a top coat. I'm having to be more aggressive than I wanted to be here. It's still giving a good mottled effect, but I should have coated it. Now around these edges it's still pretty white, so I'm going to see if I can use some water and push some of that color into the edges. Don't really want to move, so we'll just add some. Normally I would stop here and go ahead and coat with the top coat, but since I've already done those, that one like that, I'm gonna go ahead and do them both like that. So bottom left to upper right. Now, if you wanted to at this point, you could also mix up another glaze mixture, maybe a little deeper color, and scumble that on too. But I'm gonna leave that. And the next step is to mix another glaze of your same original color that you used, your base coat. So the sheepskin, again, equal parts. These are already dry. It's because that drywall mud is still soaking up the paint. The purpose of this, again, more translucent, it's not straight paint. We've got that glaze in there to make it more translucent, is to knock this color back some. When you're doing any kind of a marble type finish, that's kind of the key, is layers, sandwiching layers of your finish. Same cloth. Lightly remove some of it. Good pause while that was drying. I found my turkey feathers. Okay. For the veining, a turkey feather is pretty important to use. And I think I'll demonstrate on this paper first because it's so hard to see on such a small little egg. Basically, I'm going to use my glaze. I'm using the same color as the scumble right now. Offload it a little bit. Now when you lay down your veins, it's the manipulation of the feather that counts. So lightly dip it up, dip it down, wiggle it a little bit. You can even go all the way to the tip. Not sure you can see that very well because the color is fairly light. But a couple of things you want to remember. You want to work at a 45 in the same direction. You know, I worked bottom left to right. You could have worked from top to bottom, which I will do when I'm doing the veining. So, you don't want veins everywhere. You need to be pretty judicious. If you look at a real marble, there's not veining all over it. So again, my scumble is going at this angle, and I want to put my veins where the scumble is more prominent, where the scumble is. So again, okay. You never want to go straight across. I could do this. Create a little opening there. Come in and tie into that one a little bit. A lot of wiggling gives you nice vein structure. Now I'm going to take a chip brush, and I'm not going to sweep it, I'm going to pounce it to soften some of those areas. Again, I probably should have coated it with a sealer first. Would have made it easier to manipulate, but that's okay. Do that first on all 3 eggs, and then we're going to put a little bit of a darker vein in there. Add just a tiny bit of this bittersweet chocolate in here to deepen this, just a tiny bit. Let's see if that's enough. No. By using the original color and then adding a color into it, I'm still getting the same tone values, same hues, even though it's slightly darker. And we can come in right next to that original. You want to leave some that are deeper in color, not pat them out quite so much. Now we come back to our glaze, but we're going to add another part water because we want it pretty thin. Again, it's about layers, and what we're wanting to do is knock that back, knock these veins and a little bit of the scumbling back. Getting too wet there, that's why I'm getting the bubbles. So I'm going to get a dry section. See the difference? Now that that's dried, it's it's still a little too vivid for me, so I'm adding yet another glaze layer to knock it back a little more.